What can you tell us about the impact of tariffs on your beer business, and very specifically your tallboy cans?
The challenge with aluminum tariffs and steel tariffs that are unfolded is that there's no Canadian manufacturing facility to enable Canadian brewers to produce and form the actual physical tall can or the 473 ml single can. So here we are in Canada producing aluminum, shipping it south of the border to be produced and formed in the US, which is tariffed, and then it's being imported back into Canada for breweries, which is tariffed a second time in the industry. You know, what we're about to see as Canadian breweries is an impact of about $330 million in incremental tall can costs. And in the case of Steam Whistle, we order typically $9.1 million tall cans, based on the ebb and flow of our sales and our demands. And for us, an incremental 10 cents is about to cost us almost $1 million in new costs for our materials.
So we're talking about an additional 10 cents per tall can. And a lot of people are wondering, when is beer-flation going to be a thing?
It's a good question. I think from a small to mid-sized brewer, they are going to need to pass on those costs to consumers. At Steam Whistle, we've spent the last month as the trade wars continue to rage and look for ways to offset those costs in other areas of our business. Steam Whistle is already a very premium priced brand. We don't feel it's right to pass on that incremental 10 cents or 60 cents on a 6-pack of tall cans. And so we've looked for ways to be able to offset that over the coming months as our next shipment of cans will be tariffed aluminum tall boys.
And there are other trade wars going. There's what's going on between Canada and the US. We also have this week China levying new tariffs. How does that impact the rest of your business? You have a restaurant going, you have events.
Yeah, we've looked under the hood of the business over the last couple weeks. We have had to look for ways, assuming more tariffs loom in different categories and industries, other countries. And so for us, it's looking at our paper, our chemicals, our malt that we import, our bottles, our other cans, our short cans come from Europe. And so we are prepared to make sure that we are uncovering Canadian suppliers, Canadian-made products to support our business. And the team's done a brilliant job. A great example is we were importing a Bavarian pretzel for our restaurant from Texas. The team has now found a Canadian supplier and a solution that's going to be fresher, more cost-effective, and we're probably going to get it quicker than bringing it up from Texas.
So you're finding ways within your business to buy more Canadian, which is what a lot of consumers seem to be thinking about. A lot of people are also thinking about the potential for a recession, which economists say, if this trade war remains in place, is probably going to be coming our way here in Canada. How do you prepare, how do you brace for a potential economic downturn heading into what is historically your busy season?
I was working at Steam Whistle in 2008 when the recession hit, and typically beer is something that tends to be a little bit recession-proof, mainly because that bottle of wine or that cocktail at that bar or restaurant tends to cost a little bit more. And now we're about to see this incredible Canadian sentiment of Canadian brands, and in particular beer. We're seeing it ourselves. People are looking twice at that beer label at their local liquor store or beer store. And we are buoyant by the fact that we think the Canadian consumer is going to help the beer business, Ontario wineries and distilleries still have a successful summer when they are looking to buy Canadian.
I've been hearing this from other craft brewers that there are things that we can do within Canada, and very specifically for you, the province of Ontario, to make life a little easier.
In order for us to thrive, invest in our businesses, invest in our people, we need both the federal and provincial government to get together and open up these trade barriers across the country. We think that Canadians should have fair choice of Canadian-made goods that are just as great as European or American brands that find their way onto our shelves. And so for us, we need the trade barriers opened so that there's a fair tax structure across the country. And then provincially in Ontario, what we need is fair tax thresholds. As a mid to large scale craft brewery, the more you grow, it really becomes difficult to sustain growth that's profitable. And so what we need in Ontario is a new tax reform for craft brewers to allow us to invest in our businesses and have sustainable businesses that can grow and flourish and really support our local communities and economies.
Now, running a business under the best of circumstances can be challenging. Running a smaller business that's trying to grow, I mean, there's a level of complexity. But with the tariff situation and the trade war going on, things are changing day by day, hour by hour. How complicated is that? How stressful is that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a high pressure situation, but running any entrepreneurial, Canadian founded, owned and operated business can be complicated. You have years where you are thriving and you'll have years when you're surviving. At the brewery here at Steamwhistle, we've got a great leadership team, and we always joke internally that we are all in the woods together and we need to figure out how to get out. And so we're a nimble business, we take it day by day, we're transparent with our team to figure out ways to survive climate challenges, especially in the beer industry, which can be challenging because you're up against big global brands that find their way on Canadian shelves. And so, we work quick, we're nimble, and you have to be running a Canadian entrepreneurial business.
Does it hearten you to see this movement of people wanting to support Canadian businesses going out of their way to find Canadian products?
I think so. I mean, even friends and family, myself included, you're at the grocery store and you are looking twice. That grocery trip is almost an hour now to make sure that what you're picking up is truly Canadian made. And in beer in particular, we make a lot of American beer in this country. But for craft brewers to see this resurgent, sort of the post-pandemic support local sentiment is alive and well. I think we've never seen anything like this. And as Canadian businesses, Canadian consumers, it's what we've got to do to survive these trade wars.
Thanks so much for your time and your insight.
Thanks, Anne.